The politics of the early republic begins with the unanimous election of George Washington as president in 1789. He's the first and only president to ever receive this honor, with a unanimous vote of the electors to bring him to the presidency. This time period is characterized by a strong national government. Now, under the new constitution, the central government is much stronger than it ever was under the Articles of Confederation. This time period is also in the 1790s characterized by a rapidly growing economy. Now, the economy has really recovered since the 1780s, and there's also a growing population of more immigrants coming to the United States at this time. But there's also, even though things look like they're going quite well, but it's also considered a decade of intense passion and political division. Political rivalries emerge between two parties: the Federalists, who are supported, or who are strong supporters of Washington, and some of the leaders in the Federalist Party become John Adams and Alexander Hamilton. And then their rivalries, become known as the Jeffersonian Republicans, supported by Thomas Jefferson and James Madison. And so there's intense political divisions throughout much of the 1790s, and very much towards the end, especially. So Washington's presidency was really characterized by him leading the way to set precedents of how to become or how to be a successful president. And presidents after him really modeled their own presidencies after him and his administration. So the Constitution had only outlined the presidential powers, but it was really up to George Washington to define the office and establish precedents. He decided to take a very strong, active role as president, not just someone that would sit back and allow Congress to make most of the decisions. He was really a strong leader in that way. And succeeding presidents really looked to him for a model as a strong leader and tried to mimic him in many instances. He insisted that the president could dismiss cabinet appointees. So this wasn't something that was necessarily outlined in the Constitution. We do know that, so the cabinet appointees were chosen by the president, and then they had to be confirmed by Congress. But he also insisted that even after they had been confirmed, the president could take the initiative to replace any cabinet appointees, to dismiss them. He also took on the role of negotiating treaties with other countries first and then sending them to the Senate. Again, the Constitution had said that it's up to the Senate to ratify treaties, but the process of ratification and whether it would be up to the president first to negotiate the treaty before the Senate really offered their voice, this was really left open, and Washington decided to take a more forceful, forward-looking role in regards to treaties with foreign nations. In 1792, Washington was unanimously reelected, and he set this two-term precedent in 1796 by actually deciding to retire early and not seek a third term. So that was something that wasn't in the Constitution either, but he kind of set the standard that presidents will only seek 2 terms, and every president follows this, except Franklin Roosevelt in 1940 decided to seek a 3rd term, and eventually is elected to a 4th term. After that, there's a constitutional amendment which says presidents can only serve 2 terms. So he set this precedent by retiring in 1796 without seeking a 3rd term, and he writes this farewell address to the nation. It's published in newspapers throughout the country, and in it, he does really 3 things. One is he defends his record. He gives himself and his administration a lot of credit for the success of the nation. The second thing he does is he warns against the emerging partisanship that's developing. He warns against a party system. He believes that parties will only look out for their self-interest and won't look out for the benefit of the nation, and it'll cause more tensions and problems and more difficulties in governing. Third, he cautions against long-term foreign alliances, especially with European nations. He wants to try to keep out of European affairs and international relations as much as possible, and doesn't want to have any long-term alliance because he doesn't want to get dragged into future wars. So he kind of warns the nation against uh, getting dragged into wars by forming these alliances, and he also warns the nation against this emerging partisanship that is really starting to pull uh, part of the nation apart.